It can only be attributable to human error.
He meddled in things that you people. He meddled in things. He meddled in things.
Where will we go next? Just phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Mulder.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hello, I'm Alex Daikaiju,
I'm Jasmine with
I'm Eli Watson.
and you're listening to...
Cryptid.
Campfire.
Woo! Well, it has been quite the year, and what could explain all of the craziness of 2020 except that we are living in a simulation that's on the fritz?
Yeah,
Really?
I think that sums it up. We want to thank you, everybody. Good night.
No, today we're going to be talking about glitches in the Matrix.
Hmm?
Oh, yeah. A topic we've been wanting to tackle for a while, but not quite sure when to, I guess tackle it. So what better day than 2020?
Yeah, we've had this idea on the list of possibilities for quite some time, and we decided that why not talk about it now? The term glitch in the Matrix actually does come from, well, it's tied to the 1999 movie The Matrix,
Whoa.
where where a glitch drew Keanu Reeves' attention to the fact that he was living in a simulation. The Matrix universe centers around the philosophical concept that our reality may not be real. The film's protagonist, Neo, played by Keanu, discovers that his world is a vast simulation run by hyper-intelligent AI.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was made by those crazy Wachowskis.
Or is our reality really governed by our alpha draconian overlords who are sending Bigfoot to harvest our DNA?
Well, that's the side plot of our simulation.
But basically, like a real world glitch that we'll be talking, because we have some stories that we want to tell today, some firsthand accounts and some stories that we found online and that we have heard of from other people. But basically, stories of glitches in the Matrix are usually firsthand accounts of some small but puzzling occurrence that has no logical explanation. The stories evoke the feeling that the world is not quite as we've envisioned it to be. And some people also equate glitches in the Matrix with deja vu, which is a feeling of having already experienced the present situation. I feel like those are two different things, but I guess that makes sense because in my reading, I saw a lot of people mentioning deja vu in their glitch in the Matrix stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that, but I don't know if I agree with it.
Well,
You don't know if you agree that they're the same or that they're different.
That they're the same.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, because they're... I mean, I would say deja vu is normally like a pretty pedestrian kind of feeling of, oh, I feel like I've done this before. Oh, this seems kind of familiar. As opposed to a glitch in the Matrix, which we'll get into, where it's just like, I was walking down the street and somebody started floating away.
Is that one of the stories you're going to tell?
No, that didn't happen exactly. But I was shifting through a lot of stories, and I always think of glitch in the Matrix. I always think of when you're playing a video game, like let's say like Red Dead Redemption 2, to where it's like, oh, you're walking around, and then next thing you know, somebody just starts flying into the sky because there's a glitch in the system.
Yeah.
So a glitch is something that is very, very shocking to witness.
Right, and then you recognize it, and you're like, ah, deja vu.
Yeah, you pesky deja vu.
Yeah, well, we're not going to be going too deep into the science or the probability of this actually, being real, because it can really make your head hurt.
Lucky for you, I did all that work. No, just kidding.
Oh, did you?
No, I didn't.
Well,
No.
Alex did a little bit of it, so I think we're going to talk about like where the theory comes from and why it's, discussed as a serious possibility in some circles rather than just being like a regular sci-fi, oh, it's a fictional movie type of idea.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll start off with as Jasmine was saying, we think of a glitch in the Matrix. It comes from the Matrix, which is a sci-fi movie, and the idea of a simulation or a perceived reality not being what we think it really is very common in sci-fi. But it retraces its roots back to the idea of reality not being what we think it is comes from a good friend, Plato, the philosopher.
Oh.
Oh yes.
From what I can tell, he put forth the his philosophy in 545 BC. It's called The Cave, and it's the story of these two men who have been locked in a cave since childhood with nothing but a candle while they're shackled to the cave wall, and the candle projects light, and they see shadows as they move their arms and legs. They see the shadows, and that's what they perceive. That's what their reality is. They're in a cave, and there's the shadows, but they themselves are aware, and there's more to going on than just the shadows. And that's where we get our first real glimpse of reality not being what we think it is based on sight or perception alone.
I didn't pay attention in philosophy class when I was in college. It made my brain hurt.
Dude,
Well,
philosophy's so interesting.
well, the secret to philosophy is it's all BS, as we'll get into in this TED Talk. But yeah, but I do want to. I'll go real quick. The idea of because you say the Matrix, it's some kind of computer simulation, and we get our first real idea of that in 1932 by Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
Oh, I do remember that too.
And I won't go into it because I'd say check out the book. It's kind of cool. It's it's set in the future. But there's this idea of, I think they're called the feelings or the feelies, and it's like this program that people can turn on while they sit in a chair, and then around them that seems to be little projected 3D creatures, or sometimes little things that walk around, and they can and you can watch these things. It's like watching a TV show, but around you happening. And so that's that. But you can't interact with it. You can only watch. But then 1935 rolls around, and this guy, Stanley G. Weinbaum, writes a story, Pygmalion Spectacles, where the main character meets a creator, a professor, who has basically a VR headset. You put on these big glasses, and it's like being on it's kind of like an amusement ride, to where, like, say you're like on a roller coaster, or you're in some situation to where you can experience it in the way that you can see it, you can hear it, you can smell, but you can't really interact with anything. So we're getting closer to the idea of a simulation, but it's still quite far removed. So 30 years later, we get Philip K. Dick, who's one of my favorite sci-fi authors of all time, and he's a man who really his common theme was dealing with how we perceive reality around us, because you question it because there could be more realities or perceptions of different realities going on. But my favorite thing is, not only did he do that in his stories, he did that in real life. He constantly questioned what was happening around him in real life, because he had all kinds of crazy out-of-body experiences and strange hallucinations throughout his whole life. And he's where we get Blade Runner from. A lot of his works have inspired modern-day sci-fi. But he wrote a book in 1969 called Ubik about... I'll give you just a real quick synopsis. It's about a cast of characters who have been hired to take on this giant industrial corporation in the future that's using psychics to their own advantage. And due to some espionage escapades that go wrong, our characters get blown up. But the thing is, they're not quite dead yet, because their brains get uploaded into a computer simulation. But the story starts falling apart as you're not sure if they're alive, if it's the computer simulation that thinks that it's the people, or if it's the actual people trapped in a consideration because they're not fully dead yet. So
That
perceptions of
sounds-
reality start falling apart and imploding themselves.
Sounds very psychic.
Yeah. And then it finally culminates in what we finally think virtual reality / a matrix could be in the 1980s with William Gibson, because he creates Johnny Mnemonic, which is where we get the idea of people having like USB ports in the back of their heads to plug into.
What?
Yeah, because that's one of the classic things in the Matrix is when Neo wakes up, he's in that goo pod and he's got wires in him. There's that hole in the back of the head that they put the USB dongle in. And so that's where we get our real full-on people have become kind of machine-esque and they can plug into each other and then their brains can depict different realities.
You can't forget Total Recall.
Well, that's the thing. Total Recall, based on a story by Philip K. Dick
Oh, really?
called
Oh,
We
man.
Can Remember It For You Wholesale.
Yeah, that's
So,
nuts.
like I said, yeah, there's a lot of sci-fi, and I could spend the whole episode talking about it, but I've taken too much time enough.
It was
because-
a good timeline, though. I didn't know most of that.
Oh, thank you. It's really fun to get into, but then the scary part happens when it stops being fiction, and we're in the simulation right now.
Well, did you want to talk about Nick Bostrom?
I don't have too much. If you want to take it away with him, because this is here's the real meat and potatoes of today's episode, I think.
Yeah. So as far as I can tell, the idea like really being taken as a serious possibility, like being discussed in scientific circles and things like that, came up in 2001. Nick Bostrom, I think is how you say his name. He's a philosopher at the University of Oxford. He wrote a draft of a paper suggesting that a highly advanced supercomputer would be capable of running a simulation on a humanity-sized scale. He says that the computer would be capable of doing 10 to the 42nd power calculations per second, and it could simulate the entire history of humankind, including all of our thoughts, feelings, and memories, by using less than 1/1,000,000th of its processing power for just 1 second. He suggested that members of an advanced civilization with enormous computing power might be running simulations of their ancestors. So, by this logic, all of humanity in our entire physical universe are just blips of data stored in the hard drive of a massive supercomputer. His point was that if our species moves on to a new post-human phase, the new us will have crazy computation powers, and running realistic simulations would just be like normal. So we would be like characters in a super advanced Sims video game, believing that we have the power of choice when in fact we're just puppets in the hands of game players. That's like the quick version of a very involved and detailed kind of theory. But there's a lot of people who kind of like fight his idea in a way, because if you base the question on our current knowledge and technological capabilities, it doesn't make any sense, because if we were really in a simulation, scientists wouldn't have any idea about the laws of physics in the quote real world, and they wouldn't know what kinds of computations would be possible outside the bounds of our own simulation. So everything that we think we know about what's possible in terms of computing power or the laws of physics could just be another aspect of the simulation. And then like what's to stop the simulation vicious circle? So like does it stop at just one super advanced post-human species, or like is that species in a simulation as well? And like why are they even running simulations of their ancestors? Like what's the point? If they're super advanced, then why would they be revisiting history? I don't know. There's a lot of arguments.
Well, you know why they are. Because you talk about they're running simulations of their ancestors, because it's through that idea of history is passed on through our genes biologically through our ancestors, which is the plot of Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, it is. It does sound like that.
So, whereas Assassin's Creed is like, oh, your ancestor was a Templar, and he got to jump off buildings, and he got to stab people. They're like, oh, that's awesome. In the future, our distant ancestors will be running simulations of us doing the podcast for, an hour and a half, and they're just going to study it and just be like, oh man, this is where Cryptid Campfire began. This is where it ends up in the future, running the world.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, like, have you ever felt like you couldn't, get to somewhere, like everything was working against you to stop you from going somewhere?
Dude, honestly, that happened to me this morning. All the freaking entrances to the freeway were closed where I was trying to go.
Well, it's because your descendants couldn't access those memories yet.
Yeah.
You hadn't progressed far enough in the timeline.
And now you've made aware of it, that you don't know where that area is. Hey.
But as you can tell, there is a lot to be discussed in this whole theory. Honestly, I don't have the energy to try and understand it all. I just, we're talking about the very surface level theory that we're living in a simulation, and we're going to share some stories today. But before we even do that, I have a couple extra little notes about some science that I feel I want to mention, just because I think it's going to help when I tell my stories in a little bit. So we've talked about this whole idea of us living in a simulation, but there are also possibilities for glitches in the Matrix. Like, there's other theories for why you're experiencing unexplained phenomena. They range from just simple misunderstandings or perceptions, memory dysfunction, tiredness, hallucinations, those kind of things. And so I read a little bit about memories, which is fun because, Eli, you just mentioned, accessing memories. Here's some fun vocabulary for you. Semantic memories are recollections of facts, figures, dates, and so on. So, like, hard facts, hard numbers. And episodic memories are flashbacks of specific moments in our lives. Studies suggest that when we recall episodic memories, our brains replay a compressed version of the experience. And so with every new, quote, performance, so every time you revisit that memory, details can change. Some events get emphasized, where others get dropped from the, quote, script, sometimes never to return. And this is important for one of the stories that I'm going to tell later, because I didn't immediately note the details of my story when it happened the first time. And so I've retold it a couple of times now, and I'm kind of nervous. Changed. Like, I have no way of, proving what happened when it happened. Like, I don't know I could be making stuff up. Anyways, I also read that the absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. So, if you remember the sights, sounds, and smells of, like, the zoo, the first time you ever went to the zoo, most likely you've been to the zoo, even if the elements of your memory are actually compressed from your memories of several trips. But on the other hand, you might not have a specific memory of seeing the gorilla at the zoo, but that doesn't necessarily mean he wasn't there. And I have a quote from David Chalmers, who is a professor of philosophy at New York University. He said, "You're not going to get proof that we're not in a simulation, because any evidence that we get could be simulated."
Yeah.
Yeah. But, does your little guide there say anything about how to save uncompressed memories?
No.
Okay. I need the crispy, lossless format, please. I can't deal with the compressed version. This is the difference between 4K and DVD quality.
Go ahead, Alex.
I was gonna say, yeah, like the simulation keeps getting better because everything keeps getting more 4K, and my memories are like black and white CCTVs.
Yeah.
Well, I think, oh gosh, what's it called? They do this on Criminal Minds, and now I can't remember what the correct term is for it, but they do like an interview, like when someone in the show, is a witness to a crime or experienced a traumatic event, the profilers, they sit them down and they do they do a run through of the day or the moment or the event, and they're able to unlock memories that they didn't realize they had. Like they can remember what someone looked like, or they can remember the license plate of a car or something like that. So there are ways to like unlock memories that may have been lost.
It's all in there, right? That's what they say. I'm not a brain expert, but
yeah,
it's all in there.
For the most part, yeah, I would assume.
Yeah, except for all these Cryptid Campfire episodes, my brain throws those away. Just kidding.
True.
Put them all in the discard pile.
I'm always afraid someone someday is gonna be like, "Remember when you said this on that episode?" And I'm gonna be like, "Nope."
Dude, okay. Slight tangent, but I was watching It Chapter 2 recently, and there's one part where Bill Hader's character, something scary happens to them while they're eating dinner, and they're all on edge because they think anyone and anything can be Pennywise. And this little kid approaches him as they're leaving the restaurant, and he goes, "Hey, Richie, the fun's just beginning."
Yeah.
And he goes, "I'm not afraid of you. You think this is funny?" And it turns out he's like, it's just a line from your show, man.
Yeah.
Because he's a stand-up comedian. I don't know. That just made me think of that. So thank you.
Well, I think we've talked enough about science. I'm ready to get weirded out and have some fun listening to your guys' stories about glitches in the Matrix.
Oh boy. Get ready for the weirdest deja vus you've ever heard.
Whoa.
Oh wait, I'm first.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so my stories are from Reddit today. But this is titled, "I Hit My Doppelganger at Lollapalooza 93.
Whoa.
Yeah, get ready for this. So, in 1993, I was 17 and attended Lollapalooza in Orlando, Florida. I wore black jeans, military surplus jump boots, and a black Ministry t-shirt from their Psalm 69 tour the year prior, which I also saw in Orlando. Not the most unique outfit at the festival, but this part will be important later on in the story. And then he has a picture of himself from that morning. He said, "Primus was the headliner that year. During that set, while I was having a blast circle moshing around in the pit, I accidentally shoulder checked this guy fairly hard. Back then, mosh pits seemed friendlier than today. Impacting with others, while expected and unavoidable, was never meant to harm anyone. Whenever you did accidentally run into someone hard or someone got knocked down, it was common courtesy to help them up and check on them. So I accidentally shoulder checked this guy and immediately spun around to make sure he was okay. And in that instant, it felt like time started to slow down. As I spun around to see him, he too spun around to see me. And when we made eye contact, it felt like everything stopped for a moment. I was looking at myself. Not only did we look the same, we were wearing the exact same clothing that even appeared to be in the same condition. Our shirts seemed to be equally faded. The only detail that struck me as being any different was that it seemed as if my hair was slightly longer than his, maybe by an inch or two at most. The frozen moment lasted for what seemed like a second or two, then time seemed to abruptly return and the crowd swallowed us back up. I didn't see him again. I remember thinking that it felt odd in the moment, but I must have wrote it off. I was likely easily distracted by the music, lights, people, and everything else happening around me. Let's see. He says, "After Primus was over, I was leaving the concert fairgrounds to head back to my car with my friend, whom I had driven there with. Someone laying on a blanket nearby started yelling at us as we walked by. The guy got up, ran over, and started walking alongside us, asking stuff about where we were going, when we were going to meet, so-and-so, etc. My friend and I had no idea who this dude was, and had dealt with our fair share of stoned weirdos, so we just ignored him. When he realized we weren't stopping, he sprinted ahead of me and placed both of his hands on my shoulders to physically stop me from moving. He started addressing me by the wrong name and was confused as to why I was acting this way. I knocked his hands off me, told him to back off, and my friend and I kept walking to my car, leaving him standing there staring at me with a shocked expression. He said, "At the time we laughed it off, like, what was wrong with that guy? But the next day, everything started to make sense once I started chatting online with another friend who attended the same festival. This other friend was someone I knew for years but wasn't close with. He was the level of friend where I knew he was at the same show, but I didn't expend any energy looking for him or making plans to meet up or whatever. He initiated the chat and asked if he had done something to piss me off. I had no idea what he meant, so he told me this anecdote. He was watching some band at the festival when this crowd surfing guy got past his way and fell down in front of him. He helped him up and realized it was me. He greeted me and tried to give me a hug, but I shoved him away, cursed at him, then stormed off. He was left completely baffled why I would have acted that way when he thought we were cool. There were two huge problems with this anecdote. One, I never crowd surfed, ever. Two, at the time this happened, I was with my friend watching a different band at a different stage. What's fascinating is that both my friend during the crowd surfing incident and my doppelganger's friend from the blanket incident were close enough to each of us to make physical contact and look us squarely in the eyes, yet they both mistook us for the other one.
Whoa.
Yeah. And okay, so this is the really crazy part. So I was talking to my manager yesterday, my new manager.
This is you, Eli. You were talking to your manager. You're not reading the story anymore.
No. The story done. Story done.
Okay.
New story beginning with the Eli Watson telling the story. Yeah. So I was talking to my manager, my new manager at work, and he was listening to Beastie Boys, and I was like, "Yo, what's up with the Beastie Boys?" He's like, I was actually at Lollapalooza in '92, and I was like, yeah, but he looks nothing like the dude in the picture. And
it's the wrong year too, isn't it?
It's the wrong
was
year,
it just
yeah.
from '93?
Yeah, it's the wrong year. But
that would have been wild if he was like, I was at 92 and I saw Primus as well.
Could you imagine?
Well,
could you imagine if my manager was the doppelganger?
That would be crazy. That would be absolutely nuts. If you read that online, found it on Reddit, and then went and found out that it was your manager. Oh man.
Dude, wouldn't that be nuts? But
and then they bring in the new help to help you with the stock, and his name's Smeli Smotson.
Smeli Smotson. Yeah, I thought that one was pretty interesting. Yeah. It's definitely nuts, but it could be. I mean, they say, right? There's like 7 people in the world who look just like you or something.
Supposedly.
And what trips me out is the outfit.
Yeah.
But I guess he did say it wasn't a unique looking outfit, and it was the early '90s, so could be very similar. I don't know. Glitch in the Matrix or just a lookalike? I don't know.
Well, my first story is a personal story. Happened when I was in college. My sophomore year. So I had the same roommate from my freshman and my sophomore year, and it was kind of a joke because I would always take much longer than her to get ready for a multitude of reasons. Either I rolled out of bed too late, or I was taking longer on my hair or makeup or something, whatever. But she was always waiting on me. And so one day we had plans to go get breakfast together at the dining hall. So our alarm went off in the morning, and she immediately got up and went into our bathroom while I rolled out of bed. So we were lucky enough to live in a dorm where we only had to share a bathroom with 2 other girls. Our rooms were suited, so it was 2 bedrooms connected by a bathroom, and we didn't have to do the whole walk down the hall to the communal shower thing. So because the bathroom was right there, I was always able to hear the running water and the sounds of, her moving around in there and whatnot. And since she was always waiting on me, I decided to like get ready as fast as I could and defy expectations. So she's in the bathroom getting ready, and I jumped out of bed, threw on clothes, did quick makeup, packed my books up in my bookcase, or my not my bookcase, my book bag. And I like sat down and waited for her to come out of the bathroom because I planned to like do a pose when she came out and be like, "Look, I'm ready," you know, like kind of like, "Ah, let's go." And she would be surprised. But I kept waiting and I kept waiting. And at first it was funny because I was like, LOL, now she's the one taking forever. But it was getting too close. Like we were running out of time because we had morning classes as well. So I decided to go like knock on the bathroom door and make sure she was okay. But when I went to knock on the door, I realized that the light was off and there was no one in there.
Whoa.
So I was very confused. And so I got my phone out to call her because she wasn't in her room. She wasn't in her bathroom. So I called her phone number and she picked up and I was like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "At breakfast. Why?" And I was like, "I thought we were going together." And she said, "Yeah, we were, but you didn't want to get up. You stayed in bed." And I was just like, "What?" I'm so confused.
Whoa.
And to this day, I'm still not quite sure what happened. Like, I don't know where the disconnect is or what lapse of consciousness I had, but something definitely didn't match up because I was 100% sure that I watched her get up and go into our bathroom and she never came out. And I guess it's a possibility that I did like fall asleep again right at that moment. And when I woke up again, I thought like no time had passed and I thought she was still in the bathroom. And so I like got up and, you know, was waiting on nobody. But like I said, I could hear her in the bathroom. And someone told me one time that I must have like sleepwalked or dreamed something. But like I said, I don't know where the disconnect is. Like, I don't know where my misunderstanding of reality happened, but I don't know. It was weird.
Whoa.
I just remember calling her and being like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "I'm at breakfast." And I'm like, "Why? Why did you go without me?" She's like, "You didn't get out of bed." I'm like, "No, I definitely did. I'm sitting here waiting for you. I'm dressed and ready to go."
What?
So
Whoa.
that really happened and it was weird.
No,
That
that's
is
not.
crazy.
That's wild. I don't like that.
It's very confusing.
And this happened in Ohio?
Yeah.
See, that's why.
Because I live in Ohio.
Because Ohio.
Yo. Strange
It's-
things are afoot in Ohio. Well, I'll tell my Glitz in the Matrix. Oh, it's not my I found this one. That's a good kind of, I think, tester one to be for the first round.
Okay.
So the tagline is, I met someone who no longer seems to exist. In October 2018, I developed tendonitis in my hand, so I went to go see a hand specialist at my regular hospital. I remember the hand specialist really clearly. She was really happy, talkative, Vietnamese woman with straight, dark brown hair and glasses. She had a German-sounding last name, which I assumed was her married name. She was really, really nice, and we had a long conversation about medical conference that she goes to. She explained that my hand issues caused by phone usage were the hot topic of the conference and that she'd probably use my injury as an example when she goes there. Anyway, she gave me care instructions and sent me home. I was told to return if it didn't resolve in a few weeks because then I'd need to be re-examined and sent to physical therapy. It didn't resolve and I had to go back. I had an appointment with the same doctor, but the woman who came into the room was completely different. She was a white woman with light brown hair, no glasses, completely different face shape, really dull and rather unwelcoming disposition.
Oh my.
I was so effing confused. I asked her name, and she gave the same name the Asian doctor had. I asked if there was another doctor by the name, and she told me no, it was only her. I described the doctor I had seen, and she got annoyed and said she didn't know who I was talking about.
Jeez, what?
Right? I later went online at the hospital staff directory and tried to find the Asian doctor. I couldn't. I had no idea what happened to her. I even checked my medical records to see if maybe I remembered her name incorrectly, but I didn't. Both of my visits have the same doctor's name on them. I've always been confused about it. It bothers me that I've met someone who doesn't seem to exist anymore.
Wow.
Is that crazy?
That's nuts. Yeah.
Like talking about someone meeting a doppelganger, and then Jasmine's story of like, oh, I saw her friend go into the bathroom, it didn't come out. You're waiting for her, but then she's in the cafeteria later, and now we got a story of someone meeting someone who just disappeared completely.
That reminds me of those pranks that I've seen where like they switch people on you. Like someone is like
yeah.
someone's at a counter and they're talking to somebody and the person behind the counter bends down to check something or get something, and then someone else stands up and they like try to see if the person noticed that the person changed or not. Wow, I said person a lot in that sentence, but that's what that story reminds me of is pranks, doppelganger or glitch pranks.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
People out there doing like comedy skits for reality TV, a doppelganger, like switcheroos, and people out here questioning the very reality that they live in.
Oh, nuts, dude. All right. I have another story. This one's shorter. But it might have something to do with the previous story in a very, it's not connected, but you'll understand. You'll understand. All right. So this is called, I think I just became the background character for another person's glitch, question mark.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it begins. This technically happened last night, but I was just starting a graveyard shift and am only now getting it all down. I work at a gas station chain with only numbers in its name. We're just outside. we are just outside of suburbs. None of that middle of no what? None of that middle of nowhere. Like we aren't exactly near any other business, but we are rarely completely dead for hours at a time. It was just past midnight, and with everything going on in the US right now, not a lot of things other than gas stations and bars are open at night anymore, so it was a slower evening. I should note this was posted 19 days ago as of recording.
Whoa.
I was the only one in the store, and a car pulled up to one of the two double-sided pumps out front. Pretty standard white four-door. I'm not great with car brands, but it was a little nicer, like upper middle class, and was probably only a few years old. A woman gets out and starts walking towards our door like she's in a daze. Legit, this woman looked like she saw a ghost. She wanders up, sort of freezes at the door for a second, with a 1,000-yard stare before opening it up and coming in. She didn't go looking for anything, didn't start shopping, just sort of stood inside for what felt like ages. Again, bars are still open, so I think maybe she's a little drunk or had a rough night or something, so I give the usual, welcome to the gas station. Let me know if you need any help finding anything. And she finally notices me and immediately asks me the weirdest question I have ever been asked on the job. You can see me, right? Yeah. Like, what else do you say? She breaks down crying in the middle of my store, so I'm already headed around the corner to see what's up. I have my cell phone out in case I need to call the cops or something for her. I get her to sit down on a nearby pallet of soda, and I'm grabbing her a bottle of water, and after she catches her breath a little, she tells me, I thought I had died. Again, I'm thinking maybe she is on something, but she's a middle-aged woman who looks like a standard local suburban housewife. We're a pretty boring township without your average junkies like you'd find closer to the cities. So she asks if she can call her husband to pick her up and wait with me. She has her own phone and does so, not really telling him anything other than just where she is at and if he can come get her. He says he'll call an Uber and be there as soon as possible. We're waiting. So far, nobody has showed up, so I'm keeping most of my attention on her, and eventually she starts to explain to me. I was driving home from dinner with my coworkers, and as I'm driving through a nearby intersection, a truck ran a red light and hit me. Now, her car is still at the pump without a scratch on it. She goes on to say she remembers her car being pushed into a pole, going airborne, and then nothing. I tried to calm her down, letting her know that her car is out front and it looks fine, but she insisted that she completely blacked out, woke up in an ambulance for a split second, passed out again, and then woke up again in the driver's seat of her car, at the intersection waiting for the light to change, perfectly fine. This whole thing freaked her out so badly that she drove to the nearest anything, which was the gas station, just so she could get out of the car. Her husband finally showed up to get her. He asked if I had any idea what happened. Even though she sort of explained it to me, I just shrugged because, no, I had no idea what was happening anymore. She reluctantly got into the passenger seat of her car, and he drove them back home. And that was hours ago, after which I worked an entire shift at the station trying to wrap my head around what the absolute hell I had just witnessed. Which is pretty nuts.
Whoa, yeah.
I have a possible theory discussed in the comments. They say it's quantum immortality. They say it's, basically, like anything that can happen does happen. So, like, basically, if you get killed in one reality, you'll just
wake up
in the next. That's closest to what just happened, you know? So I don't know.
I was gonna say, or she experienced another version of herself dying.
Could be, or maybe she actually did die and just like glitched over, or who knows what happened. It's like really nuts.
Maybe she died and heaven is just a continuation of your everyday life.
Oh goodness.
It never ends.
Well, my next story is also a personal story again, which you guys have actually heard before, but I'm going to tell it again. So this story happened on March 18th, 2019. But I really wish I would have written down more details about it or documented it better in like my journal or something, because it doesn't feel very compelling anymore with some of the specifics lost. All I have to reference and even know what date it happened is our Facebook message thread where I messaged you guys and I was like, I think I experienced a glitch in the Matrix today. But then I was like, I'll save the story and tell you guys in person tomorrow. So Alex and Eli have already heard this story before, but it was probably more exciting the first time. And I hope I'm not making things up or remembering them improperly. But what I do know is I was walking to work and there was a man walking the same direction ahead of me, maybe 10 to 15 feet ahead of me. And then behind him was a little girl. So it was me at the back, little girl in the middle, man at the front of the line, and we're on the sidewalk. But the girl was like an awkward distance away from the man, so I couldn't really tell if they were like together or not, like a father and daughter or whatever. And at no point did he like look back to check on her or reach out for her hand or like even glance back at all. So she was just looking down at the ground and kind of skipping like any typical little girl from any weird or creepy story might do. She's like skipping down the street. So I walked a little faster just so that I could see the both of them, because I was coming up on my workplace that I was about to turn into. And as I passed them, I took another glance back at them and just noticed that they were still walking pretty far apart from each other. Like this little girl was not any sort of distance away from someone to make it look like she was part of their family. Like she looked alone. But I was like, this guy, like, is this, like, they have to know each other, right? Because there's no one else around. So I sped up and I turned left into the door of my workplace. And then I looked behind me one more time, waiting to watch them pass by the window. So like this is all happening in a matter of seconds. So I, pass them, turn left into a building, look over my shoulder to wait and watch them pass by the window. And the guy passed the window, but the little girl did not. So I was like, what the heck? And so I went back outside, popped my head out, and, trying to see where this girl had gone because I was concerned, and she was nowhere.
Oh.
And the only place that she could have like ducked into in that short distance in that short amount of time was the business next door, which was a Chipotle. So I actually went into the Chipotle to see if she was in there anywhere because I felt like I was going crazy and I couldn't find her. And when I didn't see her, I looked back outside and could see the man further down the street now, still by himself, just walking along. And so I do not know where this little girl went or if she even actually existed.
Whoa.
Weird.
Yeah. Yeah. That is weird.
Yeah.
Super weird.
I remember when you told us this. I do.
Does it sound the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I was like, yeah, this sounds okay. Yeah, I was like, oh, I remember the story talking about, and then like, oh yeah, and I was like, oh, I remember you going to Chipotle too.
Yeah. Like
no.
the thing about the memories is like I want to say she had pigtails, but I'm also like, did she have pigtails, or is that just something that I would expect a little girl in this kind of story to have? Like I don't actually remember what she looked like.
Oh, weird.
I just know that she was a little girl. Like, I think she had a dress on. I think she had pigtails, but I don't actually know. I know that she was, like, skipping and, like, looking down at the ground and, like, just on her jolly old way. But I thought it was weird because it was, like, it doesn't look like she has an adult. There's, like, no guardian around. Like, it could be this guy, but he's not paying any attention to her. And obviously, he keeps walking once she's gone. So I'm like, I don't know, man.
Whoa.
That's super weird. She just like disappeared.
Yeah, she disappeared. And it's like, well, you could argue, well, maybe she got in a car. And I'm like, but this literally happened in like 5 seconds. Like all of this happened in a very short amount of time. Like there's like, I don't know. But those two stories are told are the only like glitch in the Matrix stories that I personally have. The only things that I can really recollect.
It's crazy. 2? That's pretty nuts. I've had 0.
I was gonna say.
It is pretty crazy thinking about it though, actually, because I'm like, wow, I really did have like glitch in the Matrix stories. Like, I don't know what the F was.
Yeah, because I was trying to think of if I had any, and I was like, I don't think I have anything like as crazy as Jasmine's stories, like.
Yeah.
But I do have a crazy story to tell that I found online.
Tell.
Yeah, this one freaks me out. This is a good one. So, the story goes as follows. I used to work at a juvenile detention center in a small town. I worked nights, and on this night I went in at 9 p.m. When I got to work, my supervisor asked me what I was doing there. I said I worked tonight. He said, "But they said you called in sick a few hours ago." I was a bit confused and replied, "It must have been someone else and they got the message wrong." Then things got more weird. When I relieved the guard on duty and settled in for the night, I looked at the message that said I called in. It said I had called in at 6:50 and that I had gotten sick while out cleaning up after the storm. There had been a storm the night before and it had been a bit bad, but not anything that I had to go out and clean up. It was truly weird. Supervisor came into the control around that time. He was also a friend of mine outside of work, and we started talking about it and how odd it was. I decided to call my wife at home and tell her about it while I was sitting there. Picked up the phone and dialed. After 2 rings, a man picked up the phone and with a raspy voice said, "Hello?" I did not know what to say for a few seconds. I looked at the phone to make sure I dialed the right number, and I had. After a few seconds, the person said, "Hello," again in the same raspy voice. I said, "Hello, who is this?" "This is Tyler. Who is this?" the person said. My head started spinning because my name is Tyler also. And then I said in almost a scream, "Where is Anne?" And he said, "Anne's in bed. Who is this?" I dropped the phone and told my supervisor to ring me out. I had to get home, and I took off towards the door. I could hear my supervisor, Dave, pick up the phone behind me and say, hello, followed soon after by a, what the F? Rather loudly. I ran to my car and drove home faster than what was legal, my mind racing the entire time. I busted through the door, and my wife was sitting there watching TV and was shocked that I was shocked at me being home. I asked her who was there, and she said no one was here. After a long talk with my wife, I went to call the prison and tell them what was going on, but the phone was dead. I went back to work, and when I came in, Dave was acting weird and asked me, how the hell are you doing this? He told me that when I left, he picked up the phone, and the person on the other end sounded like me. He kind of freaked out and hung up the phone. A minute later, he could see my car leaving the parking lot. I had called back. A minute later, as he said he could see my car leaving the parking lot, I had called back from home and asked what the F was going on. He said that I was a bit irate and said I was sick and did not feel like playing these games and was telling him to stop prank calling him and me and hang up. After convincing him I had no idea what was going on, we went back to work. Later, I found out that the phone line from my area had been knocked down the night before by the storm. It was absolutely the strangest thing that's ever happened to me.
What?
There's a lot of doppelganger stories when it comes to glitches in the Matrix.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely like a common thing is the like a doppelganger, or sometimes somebody like Jasmine, you said, just disappearing. Someone being there one moment and just completely disappearing the next.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, but isn't that crazy? Like to call and you hear yourself on the phone, but you're like sick.
Yeah, dude, that's nuts.
So that one was pretty freaky.
Yeah, I don't like that. That reminds me of another story that I wish I would have found, but if I can just summarize, if you will, it was basically this woman, I guess she got a call from her mom, like in the middle of the night, and her mom sounded like worried and was like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Like, and I guess supposedly everyone in her family had gotten a call from her saying that she was like really sorry that this happened, and she was crying and that she couldn't do it anymore. And she was like, "What? No, I was just sleeping." Yeah. It was something along those lines. I was like, "Ooh, don't like
Whoa.
that." Like,
That's creepy, yeah.
Yeah, I was reading a lot of these stories online because, I mean, I know I just told my two personal stories, but I did some browsing on the internet as well to find other people's stories. And a lot of them were like scary almost and
oh
like
yeah.
unsettling. Like mine are kind of like, whoa, what's going on? But like they're not terrifying or unsettling.
Sure.
Yeah, you didn't encounter yourself.
Yeah.
I have one short one I would like to share. It's called Lego bricks teleporting in my apartment. Uh, which I feel like Lego bricks do teleport. And I'll share a story, a personal story after I read this. Um, so it goes, this happened to me a lot when I was a child. I would accidentally drop a Lego brick on the floor, and it didn't matter from which height. I would find him at least 2 meters, 6.5 feet away from me. One time I dropped one while I was in my room, and later found him in the bathroom. I'm sorry. The fact that he uses him to describe a Lego brick is so funny. Um, that was not only at least 4 meters, 13.1 feet away, but also one stair above the normal floor. And that is the story. But uh, yeah, so he's got some Lego bricks teleporting. But I'll tell you this. And this happened for real. I remember this, and my brother saw it too. We have our big little Lego bin, and we were
A
going through.
big little Lego bin.
Okay, fine. It's a big Lego bin. All right. And we're going through the Legos looking for a specific piece. It was green. I don't know. It was a little like 2x2 piece. And finally found it in the back of the bin, and I like was like, oh, there it is. And I remember because it was like there was other bricks on top of it, but I saw it there at the bottom, and I was like, oh, there it is. And I shit you not, it just disappeared. And I remember because the bricks that were on top of it just fell over. Like the one that it was just weird. It disappeared and then they fell down. They didn't like fall down and I lost it because I never found the brick again. It just disappeared, like gone.
Whoa.
Wow.
So maybe I do have a glitch in the Matrix story, but
Yeah, what are you talking about? That's totally one.
yeah, I don't know. I also maintained that my Yoda figure got lost when I was little too. I had commandeered my sister's room, which sounds weird, but I was playing with my Star Wars figurines and the Yoda fell off, and I heard him like plop on the ground. I was like, Yoda's dead. I'll pick him up after the battle's over. And then he like was not there. And then, eventually my sister remodeled her entire room and we tore up the carpet and everything. And homeboy Yoda was not there. So I don't know what.
To a ghost.
Yeah, he turned into a ghost. You killed him. He's a force ghost now.
Yeah, but can you play with force ghosts?
Not
I think
this
so.
crude matter.
Yeah, but that's that.
Whoa.
Well, I have one more like 3-sentence story as well. That's not mine. I read this from an anonymous poster on a website called Thought Catalog. But I wanted to share it because it has to deal with ice cream, and I love ice cream, and I just think it's really funny. So this person writes, I spilled chocolate ice cream on my leg. I wiped it off, and there was still a pale brown stain in the shape of the ice cream splotch. I told my mother, and she said it was a birthmark. I will swear under oath that never before that moment did I have a birthmark there.
Whoa.
And that's the story.
Oh, weird.
And that it's just funny because I'm like, dude, that would have me tripping if I like spilled something on myself and was trying to wipe it off, but it like stained, and I'm like, oh man, I can't get, man, it stained my skin. And then someone else was like, no, dude, that's your birthmark. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yikes, that would be nuts, dude.
Yeah, whoa. Speaking of weird and bizarre, I have one funny, it's kind of a funny little glitch in the Matrix, if you will. I found this one, and it's pretty good because it's a different little glitch, and it begins. I had a somewhat long, involved dream while I was a vendor in a fish market. I remember getting up early, dressing, doing a whole morning routine, going to get tea, heading out to the docks, buying fish, loading them into a cart, going to get ice, then haggling for ice, buying some less fresh fish while I was at it, then going to a market at my stall, setting up and selling fish all day. It was so real. I talked to my friends, smoked nasty cigarettes, haggled customers, ate lunch, had tea, just lived through the day. At the end of the day, I cleaned up, I counted my cash, paid the stall rent, went home, cooked some of the fish I hadn't sold, slinged some veggies and rice that I traded for. I drank some more tea, relaxed a while, drew a hot bath, soaked and smoked a few more cigs, and then went to bed. Next morning, I woke up refreshed, ready to go down to the docks, buy some fish to catch, except I was in my house, next to my wife, truck parked outside, and it was a Saturday, no work. My wife and I were getting geared up to go skiing in Oregon, and the car was already packed. The weird thing was, in the dream, I was single and a smoker. In real life, I'm not. And the whole dream had been in fluent Chinese. The effortless kind of fluency that only comes from a lifelong of speaking it. Oh, and I had been Chinese in the dream, too. When I woke up, in reality, I'm a big, hairy white dude. Somewhat fluent in Spanish, and I know a little bit of Russian, but I've never known Chinese. It was just weird, and I've never worked at a fish market either. To this day, I still wonder who I was and what it was.
Yeah,
Dude.
I read that one.
Yeah, I've read that one too. That's wild.
That's a good one.
He
Just a nice
straight
little...
up like was living somebody else's life in that dream.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. Is like, I mean, I wonder if it was, speaking of glitches, what if it was a past life is just a glitch of like your
Yeah,
old programming rewriting.
dude, that's
Nuts.
crazy. Dreams are wild, man. We should do an episode on dreams someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think
I
that'd
don't
be
have
fun.
any crazy dreams.
Oh, I have so many. But that's all the stories I brought to the table for today. I don't have any more to share.
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of come to a close here, really.
Yeah. I think we can. We had some good stories, some good glitches in the Matrix, some personal, some people online. And I think before we bring it to a close, I just wanted to say it's interesting because we have this idea of a glitch in the Matrix, and the whole thing is we're living in a computer simulation that sometimes mucks up here and then. You got bugs running around. What if everything we know about cryptids are just glitches? What if
No.
Bigfoot is a giant glitch that keeps popping in and out of the program?
Dude, I'm telling you, they're here to harvest our DNA for the Alpha Draconians.
And what I want to know is, when did the simulation start?
Oh,
'Cause
have you?
is it are we living in the future and we just think it's 2020 and really it's like 3002?
Who knows, man?
Have you heard that theory that nothing existed before, like, right now, and that everything else is just like generated, like memories and everything? It's just like, like none of it actually happened. You just like they're like implanted false memories. Like, oh yeah, we've totally done 100 episodes of Cryptid Campfire, and although they exist, we haven't really done them because none of us existed until right now.
I mean, we've said before we don't ever remember an episode after we record it, so
Yeah. I will say it's a little shoddy programming, but my compliments to whoever made the simulation, because boy, did it when they designed back pain, they did it really well, because all the time.
Yeah, I mean, with that, I guess that's the episode for this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about you guys, the listeners out there? You guys ever have Matrix? Any weird scenarios? Because if you have, you should totally tell us about it.
Oh yes, please do.
And where can they tell us about their stories?
Oh yes, you can. All right, you can tell us at our Instagram. Oh, okay, probably be the best to email the story. So info@cryptidcampfire.com. You can visit us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Cryptid Campfire. You can check us out at our website at cryptidcampfire.com. And if you still can't get enough of us, subscribe to our Patreon, where you get access to at least 2 exclusive episodes every month, and as well as the entire back catalog of exclusive episodes. I think it's like somewhere around 20 now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you get some juice there. There's some juice involved.
Yeah.
And but yeah, if you are interested in us as hosts, and you're like, I don't want to tell Cryptid Campfire my story, I want to tell Alex my story, how do I do that?
Yeah, if you want to tell me any crazy stories, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at AlexDaiKaiju. Alex, DAIKAIJU. My Instagram, I post a lot of monster and cryptid related artwork. So be sure to check that out. And my sources that I use today, I used Thought Catalog. I used indie100.com. I used on YouTube. There's a extra credit. They did a nice little compilation of sci-fi that helped me understand where the idea of the Matrix came from. And I, of course, used the Dreadnought Wikipedia. And it's one of those things to where if you think you're seeing Jasmine May with in your mind's eye, You probably are, because she's the next rising star of Hollywood, and she's here to tell you more about
Oh my goodness. Thanks, Alex. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. My name is the same on both. Jasmine May with JasmineMaewith. I also used a couple sources today that were pretty heavy on the science side of things, so I didn't use a lot of their information, but you can still look up the articles if you want to. I used Oxford Languages for some definitions. I found my stories from Thought Catalog, and I read articles from the Huffington Post, Business Insider, NPR, and Scientific American.
Woohoo! A good sciencey info for you guys. And it was the French philosopher, his name, bear with me, Rene Descartes, who said the infamous cogito ergo sum, which translates to I think, therefore I am. But it was the Eli Watson who said Yoda fall down, go boom. That I think really set the stage. Please take it away, Eli.
I don't think I've ever said that, but you can follow me at the Eli Watson on Instagram. And for my sources today, I used Reddit, specifically Redditors J-Man, the German. That was Lego bricks teleporting in my user the karma don't matter. I think I just became the background character for another person's glitch. And Ghostface Star Killer. I hit my doppelganger at Lollapalooza 93. And that was all I used. So thank you everyone for listening. We hope you had a blast. And stay tuned for next week when we come up with something coolio.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
This podcast is a part of Straight Up Strange Productions. Discover more shows like this one at straightupstrange.com.